Hello and welcome back to Black Dice Gaming. I'm James and today we're doing a painting video. We're going to be painting up Thall, the Dungeons and Lasers Necromancer Dragon. And there she is just there. This is the finished article. And painted up pretty quickly, pretty easily. Some interesting things with the insides leaking out of its body just there. Base I didn't do on camera, but it's pretty straightforward. It's stone, bone, and I painted it as water, but you could easily do it as a swampy browny sort of colour. I didn't do a lot on the base, but I'll show you how I painted up the dragon, and please join me, and hopefully you might get some hints and tips on how best to paint your models. Okay, so get your paintbrushes ready. We're about to do. Okay, so cracking straight on with the first colour. First of all, we're using Leviathan Purple contrast paint, and we're just going to be using it all over the muscle. So anywhere where the sort of muscle is showing, it's mainly on its back and on the neck, lower neck part there. And its arms and a little bit on the sort of calves of the feet. You need to be going pretty careful with this because it is quite a strong deep colour and it's going to be very difficult to cover over later on without having to reapply the slap chop sort of undercoat technique. As always, I use a black spray paint from Colourforge, and then I go over with Vallejo's grey, basalt grey, and Vallejo white. I have sort of concentrated on the bone area with a little heavier on the white because we're going to be colouring that bone, and with it being a light colour, we could do with a good base colour on of the white. So carry on here, just going through getting all the sort of fleshy, muscly parts of the dragon before we move on with any other colour. As I say, it's mainly sort of towards the back of the model. Its legs, you can see there that its thigh has got a bit of muscle on it. Sort of extremities, the arms that reach into the wing, that's another part. Okay, moving on to the second colour, and for that we are using Skeleton Horde, again straight from the pot, not diluting it down at all. A little bit of a brush change there to get a slightly bigger brush. Now there is a lot of bone on the model. We're mainly concentrating on its head, its spines, the whole tail is bone, complete bone, and there's some of the rib cage showing, and then there's a lot of bone on its legs and hands. They're all covered in bone, so we're just being pretty careful. Again, we don't particularly want to get it anywhere we don't want it, but we're just going to slap it on, make sure we've got full coverage all over the model wherever we can. Sorry, it's not the best camera shots here. For some reason it didn't want to focus, but I was too busy concentrating on the painting to notice that it wasn't focusing very well. So apologies, but you kind of get the gist. We're just painting the bone in Skeleton Horde. So moving on with the next step, and for this step we're colouring in the wing membranes, and for that I used Plague Bearer Flesh, which is quite a light muted green colour, quite sickly green colour. It doesn't stand out too well on the camera from what I'm just noticing, but it does make quite a nice little impact. Just that tint of green in the model. Actually starting to pick up now, you can sort of see the green. And basically we're just doing all the membranes, just taking our time, trying to be careful not to get it anywhere where we've already painted. But it's not the end of the world at this stage. It's quite a very light colour, so it's easy enough to go over should we get it where we don't want it. But yeah, we're just concentrating, getting a nice sort of thick coat if we can, because it is quite a light colour. So just get a nice thin thick coat just to fill in those membranes. Shouldn't take too long because the membranes are really tattered and torn, so this was quite a speed part. And there you go. So moving on to the next colour, there's got some sort of entrails hanging down from it. So I just painted that in Volupus Pink. You can sort of slightly dilute it. This is kind of what I did. I had some water on the brush, so it kind of thinned it down slightly. Just instead of being such a bright, vibrant pink, it sort of tones it down ever so slightly. Makes it look a little bit more gory. But this is a nice simple step. You can see that, I don't know if I picked it up here, but there is some entrails down the middle of the rib cage as well. So I forgot them originally, I had to go back and do them a bit later on. But please don't forget. But it's not the end of the world, it is easy enough just to go back in later on with the Volupus Pink. So moving on here, and this is pretty much our last base colour. I'm using Militarum Green, so it's a much deeper, darker green than with the Plague Bearer flesh that we've used on the wing membrane. And all we're doing here is we're doing the sort of, I thought it was cloth, but it could be skin. But whatever it is, we're painting this sort of fabric skin type material in this green. I just fancied painting it in a slightly darker green to give a little bit of definition between the two, and because there isn't a lot of colour on the model, it just makes it stand out a little bit more. So this is a nice simple step. Just take your time, paint all the little little bits hanging down, and the bits on its spine. It sort of goes from the spine and hangs down either side, but it's nice and straightforward. Okay, so we're moving on to a dry brush now. And all I'm doing here is I'm using Usati bone as a bit of a dry brush on all of the bone on the dragon. So I'm starting off with a tail here, and it's just, the slap chop technique is brilliant, but it leaves the colours quite dull. So I've decided just to sort of brighten it up with this dry brush of Usati bone. Just to pick out all the edges, really. Saves us doing an edge highlight, and this is, if you just take your time and be very sort of precise with where you're putting the brush, and you're not going to get it all over. But yeah, we're just covering the bone here on its leg, and it does sort of brighten it up, make it stand out a little bit more. So we are moving on to the dry brush stage now. We do quite a few little dry brushes just to make a difference to the whole thing, really. Okay, you can see here I'm just picking up on the face and its horns and teeth and things. Now what you don't see here is that I did the first dry brush in Ushabti Bone, and then I did a second dry brush off camera in Screaming Skull is what I used, and it does make quite a difference to do the two layers. And so here we're dry brushing the wings, and for that we used Ogran Camo, but only nice sort of light muted green will do. And all we're doing is sort of concentrating in the middle of the wing, and then not so heavy on the outside of the wing, so it sort of gives you a sort of transition of colour. It sounds better than it actually is, because the colour's not too dissimilar to the Plague Bearer flesh. I mean, you can tell that you've done it, but it is quite a muted tone. It's not going to sort of pop. So maybe something a little bit brighter would be better, but that's all I had at hand, so that's what I had to use. Now I also did it on the cloth fabric type skin on the top. I used the same colour to highlight that. This stands out a lot more because it's on a darker base, and it does make it look really sort of sickly and deadly sort of skin or fabric, or whatever it is. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to go with fabric, I think. But you just kind of be really sort of particular where you're hitting, but you can see then it's made a hell of a lot of difference to the actual finish of that fabric. There you go. Now I completely forgot to record the other bit, but what I did is I did the same dry brush with Gene Stealer Purple on the skin, just make it out there. Here I'm colouring in the eyes with the same Gene Stealer Purple. I'll show you the skin better, maybe not, maybe when I do the talons. And then I move straight on from there to do the talons, and for that I just used Templar, Black Templar, just to do its talons. So I'm really sorry I didn't manage to record me doing the dry brush on the flesh, but it's just a case of really sort of targeted dry brush in the Gene Stealer. The contrast between the Gene Stealer and the Leviathan Purple is amazing. The highlights really do sort of pop out. You might be able to see it better on the final image, which is coming up very soon. Like I say, you just do the talons here. I mean, you could leave them bone colour if you wanted to. I just like to break it up and add another colour and put black on. Okay, so there you go. You may be able to pick out the skin tone here as I did the dry brush, but that's it on its base. The base was pretty simple to do. I just did the stone in Basilicanum Grey, did the bones in Skeleton Horde, and then I used the Talisar Blue for the water, although like I said earlier, you can do some sort of swamp effect with browns or other colours. But that's it. Hope you've enjoyed. If you do, then please like and subscribe, and we've got plenty more coming, so hopefully I shall catch you in the next one.